Excellent. Okay, we are recording and we are about to get started. So thanks everybody for joining us on this beautiful Thursday morning or evening or afternoon, wherever you are. I'm Tom Piniella. I'll go over some introductions in just a second, but we're going to get started with this exciting webinar that we're really pumped to share with you. This is a lot of work went into this in the sense that we've been really busy over the last 18 months helping organizations around the world come back to the office. And so what we've done over those 18 months, we've consolidated a lot of the lessons that we've learned from some of the world's biggest organizations and a lot of small companies. We found a lot of themes among all those different organizations that we've distilled down to talk about today, and talk about the common challenges and how we've been helping those organizations. And so with that, we'll kick off today and talk about what we've learned from the year and a half of working with organizations with space reservations. And the way that we're going to do that today is with a packed agenda. We're going to go through welcome and introductions very quickly. I'll let you know who you're going to be hearing from today besides just me. And then I'm going to take you through who Appspace is. So I know many of you may not be super familiar with who we are as a company and as a platform. So I'll take you through that. And then the meat of the webinar is going to be around what the modern workplace challenges are and what we've learned and how we're meeting those challenges out in the marketplace today. And I think a lot of that's going to resonate with you. So we're excited about that. And then we'll wrap with Q&A, and I'll tell you exactly how you can participate in that. So for the rules of the road for this call today, if you could advance to the next slide. Yep, we've got the audio that you can hear through your speakers. By default, you guys are muted. Not that we don't want to hear from you. In fact, we very much do. So you should see in the bottom right corner a questions box or a Q&A box. We'll be monitoring that throughout the webinar. And then at the end, we'll get to all those questions and do a little bit of a roundtable with the presenters today and make sure we answer all of those. And then, of course, we're recording this, so you'll get an email after the session. So, if your dog starts barking or you got to go answer a quick phone call, we will make sure that you have the recording and can share that with others if you need to. All right, so who are you hearing from today? Well, I'm Tom Piniella. I'm based just outside Manhattan in Hoboken, New Jersey. I help run our sales team for the Americas. And then you'll also hear from Thomas Philippart Defoy, who's based out of Costa Rica. Yes, you heard that correctly. He lives there full time. He is our Executive Vice President of Product Experiences. So he helps listen to all of our customers and build out the latest and greatest solutions that we offer our global customers. And then Brianna Grinnan, who is a customer success manager and has helped deploy Appspace at some of the world's largest companies for helping with the return to work. So Thomas and Brianna are going to talk about their experiences in just a bit. But first, I'm going to steal a little bit of the limelight and talk about who Appspace is before I turn it over to Thomas and Brianna. And so with Appspace, we are a workplace solution. And what we do is we help organizations communicate to their employees regardless of where they are, as well as help deploy workplace experience tools like space reservation, hoteling and hot desking, and visitor management. And we do that with a single platform. It's one cloud-based solution that you can easily deploy via mobile, desktop app, as well as on workplace devices like digital signs, room scheduling tablets, and kiosks. And we'll talk in more detail about how that gets actually done. But ultimately, what we've learned at Appspace over the last few years, especially with the pandemic that accelerated really what was already a movement in the workplace, was the emergence of the hybrid workplace. And I think everybody on this call understands that full well what I mean by that. But really, when you think about these two columns kind of on the left, you've got your new remote and hybrid workplace. I think that is a trend that is not going away. It's only accelerating. Organizations, whether they are literally some of the world's biggest companies that we help serve, all the way down to 250 employee companies, are telling us that it's imperative for them to be able to have the right dynamic between remote and in office, and that is a hybrid workplace where there's a varying degree of how often your employees will be expected to actually be in the physical workplace. What that means is that it's critical to be able to have that nailed down and done correctly for recruiting. It also means that all of the workplace kind of collaboration tools like Slack and Microsoft Teams, WebEx, and Zoom are critical in order to kind of have that correct dynamic. And it also means that there's a really, really important or new importance on communication in order to make sure that new hires and existing employees have a sense of culture despite the fact they may not always be in the office. And so what that means is you need to make sure that you're heavily investing in communication tools that help you get your corporate communications and your brand and your culture out to employees regardless of where they are, right? And so what that ultimately results in is Appspace is able to, if you could actually go back a slide, what that means is that we then also have to welcome people back into the physical workplace. And so that second column there is how do we then re-envision what our physical spaces look like? And with Appspace, not only do you have that remote capabilities to reach your employees with our mobile app, but also light up physical devices like digital signs and kiosks and room scheduling tablets to enable a more technology forward footprint, since you do have to do more with less, right? Shrinking your footprint, having more communal spaces, and our technology helps bring that about. Now, moving on to the next slide, right? Appspace provides a cloud-based unified platform that encompasses that entire dynamic. So reaching both your remote workers or workers while they work remote with employee communication and kind of the modern intranet via our employee app, as well as welcoming them back in the office, as well as all of your visitors that may be coming to the office with our workplace management and visitor management capabilities. We package that into a single employee app that's easy to deploy. We also integrate with WebEx Teams, Microsoft Teams, Slack, so that way you can actually just facilitate the use of our services through those existing employee apps. And it's designed for every employee, whether they're working frontline employees, frontline workers, office workers, and then, of course, for folks on the call serving as administrators, whether you're working in facilities, you're in IT, you're in HR, communications, or safety, Appspace brings you to the table and provides a single solution that answers everybody's needs as you look to transform into that hybrid environment. And what you're going to hear from us today is, how has Appspace done this, and who do we serve? Well, as we've brought all of this together as a single platform, we've accelerated and grown tremendously. And what's exciting, if you go to the next slide, is we've actually been able to, as we looked over the last 18 months, we've realized that we're helping organizations welcome back 500,000 employees with Appspace. So 500,000 employees around the world are using the Appspace app to book desks, to register the visitors back to their office. And so we're at the leading edge of this return to office and return to work, which we're super excited about. And when they actually get to the office, there's about 150,000 devices, whether they're room scheduling tablets or digital signs, that are powered by Appspace across these enterprises. So when you think about how quickly this has accelerated, this change has accelerated in the global workplace, we've been at the leading edge of that, and we're excited about how we've been able to be so impactful for some of the world's biggest companies and most trusted brands. And so with that said, now you know a little bit about who we are and who we've been serving. I want to pass it over to Thomas Philippart-Defoy and Brianna, who can actually crystallize that kind of large concept into some key areas that we've learned we've been able to serve. So with that, I'll pass it over to Thomas and Brianna to talk about the challenges that we've seen and the lessons that we've learned from that.
Thank you, Tom, and hello, everyone. Thanks a lot for joining. I'm excited to spend the next half hours with you and Brianna talking about challenges we've heard from customers, how we address them at Appspace, and most importantly, having Brianna come in and talk to you about how some of our customers have used Appspace to address challenges. So those are the 5 main challenges we will cover today. Safety first. I think it's obvious to everyone. How do we make sure that the workplace is a safe place to return to? And how do we make sure employees are confident that the enterprise, their employer, has taken care of all the safety measures. The second one is employee experience. No sacrifice in employee experience. Pre-pandemic, we had an experience we expected every morning when we were coming to the office. As we return to the office, the experience needs to be at least as good, if not better, than pre-pandemic. Resistance to change. Biggest challenge for any organization is implementing change that applies to the workforce. And there's definitely a lot of resistance, and there are ways to ease that and simplify. So we'll talk about that. Introducing checkpoints, that's a new concept. This is really to enforce both the safety side of the equation, but also educating users and giving them the right information. And then finally, hot desking versus hoteling. I was on a call yesterday with a customer who said, well, I don't understand what the difference is between the two. And which one do I need? Which one do I pick? So we'll talk about that as well. So those are the 5 challenges we'll cover today. I'll go through one challenge at a time, and Brianna will address customer experiences for each of those. All right. So safety first. 18 months, I've stopped counting since the beginning of the pandemic, but the number of times we heard we're going back to the office next month or next quarter, and this is how it's going to happen, it has constantly changed. And the latest Delta variant has just shuffled the whole thing once more. And a lot of companies are delaying the return to the office to next year even. So it's really hard for an organization to adapt, but it's even harder for an employee to know what's going to happen next. And I think we will all go back to the office, and we all want to go back to the office, whether it's full-time or part-time, that doesn't really matter, but we're going to go back to the office. And to feel safe, we need to make sure that our employer is communicating appropriately around what are the safety measures in place that are aligned to the current situation, but also the local regulation. So at Appspace, next slide, please. Oops. All right, thank you. How do we plan for a safe return to the office? Well, we focus a lot around communication, and Tom mentioned the fact that we have an employee app that will allow you to reserve workspaces and plan your journey. But the most important part of our app, I believe, is it starts with communication. It's an opportunity for the app to engage with your audience, with your users while they're still at home, preparing them for the return to the office, informing them about key dates, key requirements, new processes in place, what measures are being implemented by the organization. So I think that's really important to realize that. But once you come on site and you arrive in the workplace, communication doesn't stop there. It actually accelerates. And this is why the power of Appspace, the platform here in this case is so critical, is you communicate with your users on their personal device while they're working from home. And then as they enter the workspace, you can communicate on workplace devices like digital signs or inside meeting rooms on video devices. And you have that multiple touch point where you can keep your audience engaged. And then finally, you want to make sure you track your users' feedback. So during the journey, you want to have touch points with your employees where they can input and you can collect opinion and feedback and make sure that you're addressing the needs of your employees so they feel safe. So that's the communication challenge, and that's how we at Appspace offer to address it. I'm now going to pass it over to Brianna to talk about some customer use cases.
Sure. So thank you, Thomas. What we've seen some clients do, like Thomas has said, they've really taken advantage of that employee app. So they are creating consistent messaging. They are using the same signage in their digital displays as they are in maybe a WebEx team or the employee app, outlining what the processes are, reminders to wash your hands, things along those lines. And then they're also using our admin console to get information on who's been in the office so they can know for their cleaning crews what desks need to be utilized. So they've really been able to hit all the points of the platform in order to make employees feel heard and feel safe when they're going back in, and so they understand each step of the way what they can expect when they return to the office.
Thank you. This is great. Thanks. Next one, please. So our next, maybe I can do that. Here we go. Next challenge is employee experience. So implementing a new tool or implementing new processes and workflow mean that there's a potential change in the experience of the employee. But if for many years you used to come into the office and go to the same desk, sit next to the same colleagues, use the same meeting room, and when you return to the office, everything is upside down. You're now reserving a desk to come into the office. You don't know who's sitting next to you. You're using huddle spaces versus meeting rooms. There is a change that sudden experience transformation is disrupting for the employees, and they feel that there's been a drop in the quality they had before. And we've all worked in an office with colleagues that we would meet every morning and have a coffee. I think that's the best use case we hear from customers is how do I make sure that as I implement hot desking and hoteling, I don't lose that social capability of meeting with my peers. So in Appspace, we've implemented an app and workflows that allow you to reserve the workspace you need specifically for the task that you plan to address in the office. So you can use the app to locate a space based on the building, the floor, the neighborhood you want to be part. You can look for that space based on the type of space. Is it a meeting room, a conference room, or is it a desk that you're looking for, a huddle space? For how many people do you need that space for? So you can book just a desk for yourself or a huddle room for a group to gather around a video device for a collaboration session. The filters allow you to really narrow your search to the ideal workspace you need for the day. But at the same time, you can also search for your colleagues and locate where they are sitting on a Monday morning at 8 a.m. So you can either look for a desk nearby and sit next to them, or far away from them if they tend to speak really loud on a Monday morning and you need a little bit more coffee before you can actually handle it. So really the process of implementing this new app is to enhance the employee experience. It's not to sacrifice on the experience. It's really to give more options so the user can plan for their journey ahead of time and make sure they're getting everything they want from the workplace, the right workspace setup, the right colleagues interaction and social meeting, and any other things that is relevant to them. Rihanna?
Thanks, Thomas. So what we've seen some clients do is because the app is so flexible in regards to it's available in the store, it's available as a web app, they've implemented either in their intranet, so it's really easy, it pops up, it's already part of their employee experience, so it's very easy from that perspective, or they are relying on Appspace to use our iOS app or Android app to make it easy since maybe their intranet is not as flexible or as modern. We also have some clients that are excited with that Find Your Employee to also begin making neighborhoods. So they're going to make it so it's easy to find your colleagues and know that all the accounting people are in one section and where to go. And you're not wandering around the office. You always have your section that you're going to. There's just a few ways people have really taken on using the employee app.
This is great. And I think as we look at where we're going next from an experience standpoint, we want to increase the experience even further. Today, we're talking about reserving a workspace and a workspace next to people that we want to be sitting or next to team members. But tomorrow, we look at leveraging our workplace devices in the workplace to actually reserve those as well. So if I'm coming into the sales neighborhood and there's a WebEx device and a digital sign, I can see them in the app, I can reserve them, and I can assign my team content to those devices so that when I come to that space is tailored for the audience that's going to be sitting next to those devices. So that's really the next level up of experience is this concept of preparing your workspace to be fully tuned to the team or group of users that's coming there. Next use case, resistance to change. That's probably the one we hear the most, Brianna, is customers worried on how they're going to be able to get users to adopt the app, adopt the new workflows and requirements. And it's normal for everyone. We're all afraid of change. We're all worried of what this is going to mean. At first, when we were told we were going to go back home and stay there for a little while, we were afraid of that. Would our employer keep us, or would they start reducing staff? And now that they're talking about bringing us back in, are they going to force us back in the office? What kind of workspace? So the fears are real, and we need to address that. On top of that, there is this concept of, for the last 10 years, companies have been encouraging employees to bring their own device to the office. So a lot of employees use their own phone. And if they're using their own phone, are they going to accept to install a company app on their device? You can't force them, it's their personal device. So we wanted to address that as a whole, and I think we're giving really that opportunity. And the way we do it is through two main components. The first one is, I call them the 3 pillars. You want to engage and inform your employees and make sure they're ready to be coming back to the office and they understand what are the tools that are going to be available for them to do that. Then you want to educate them on how to use those tools. And finally, you want to empower them to use the tool. So really engaging with your audience, educating your audience, and empowering them to reserve a workspace and plan for their user journey. All of this is done in one app. You don't need multiple apps. But that app is not on its own. It nicely integrates with the tools that your employees are already using today. It may be the calendaring tools. So maybe an employee is using Outlook to reserve a workspace, typically a room. Well, they will be able to add the Appspace plugin into Outlook and use the plugin to actually reserve a desk, invite people to that reservation, and maybe add their WebEx meeting to it. So we're enhancing the Outlook experience. We're not replacing the Outlook experience. At the same time, a lot of companies have aggressively deployed enterprise messaging apps like WebEx, Teams, Slack, and others. Those apps are vastly used, and they're almost a window to the rest of the productivity apps. So Appspace natively integrates with WebEx, with Teams, and Slack. It allows you to receive the 3 pillars. So receive employee communication, receive and view videos so that you can be educated, and finally, you can make your reservations and receive your notifications for your reservation in those apps directly. Finally, we of course have a web app that you can access on your browser, on your laptop. It's a fully responsive web app. So for users who don't want to install a native app on their phone, they can access the app through their browser on their iPhone or Android device, and it will work just fine. And of course, on the App Store, you'll find the iOS and Android device. So we've really made sure that the Appspace app is enabled across all your productivity apps so that the user adoption is facilitated and accelerated, and you see less resistance. Brianna, any good ideas to share from customers on how they use this?
Yeah, we actually have one large athletic brand who has hit all the points you've just described. They are a large WebEx user. They are an Outlook shop, so they want their users to feel comfortable and obviously use the platform. So they have implemented the plugin. They add all their WebEx information to their reservation, so it's very easy to reserve your conference room and then see the information from there without having to go back to Outlook to edit and add that conference room details. And then they're taking advantage of the iOS app or the web app just based on user preferences within the company. So they've seen good success rates and adoption from that front as well.
Yeah, and I think we've also seen one of the largest tech company in the world actually take our web app and embed it into an existing native employee app that they were using. So I think that's really one of the benefits of having this web app, is for customers who already have an employee app and already addressing employee communication, and what they really need is the space reservation capability of our app. You can actually turn off the engage and education part of our app and focus on the space reservation and embed it into an existing app. So you don't need to run 2 apps, you can embed into an existing app. I think we're seeing a lot of attraction around this, making it again easier for users to adopt new workflows and requirements. Great, let's move on. And the next one is checkpoints. And I think this is really very new and very pandemic driven. When you think about when you were coming to the office pre-pandemic, you would just jump on your car, drive to the office, or ride a bike, and then you would enter, use your badge to get into the building, eventually to the floor, and then sit at your desk and start your journey. You didn't have this concept of checkpoints. Now, because of the pandemic, we need to make sure that people coming into the office are safe. So we need to make sure that you can provide information related to your health, whether you have been vaccinated or if you've had a PCR test. And this is constantly changing. In Europe, 27 countries have unified around this concept of a vaccine passport. And a lot of employers are expecting employees to submit this vaccine passport before they can come back to the office. So there is this requirement around checkpoints there. The second is making sure that you track usage of your workspaces and you capture feedback from your users so that you can adapt the workplace based on where the demand is. Do you need more hot desks? Do you need more huddle space? Do you need more meeting rooms? We want to make sure that we're taking action to improve safety and well-being. So as I plan to go back to the office and I reserve a desk or a room, I may be presented with a checkpoint asking me around to watch a video on how to wear a mask or a CDC video around the COVID symptoms so that I can be clear on that information before making a reservation. And then also on the educating employees on new workplace policies. So there are a lot of new challenges that we're getting exposed to that you can hear from many companies out there, the Pricewaterhouse and Deloitte, that talk about how important this is. Now, how do we implement this at Appspace? How do we give you the tool for that? Well, we've introduced the concept of checkpoints. So when I'm coming to the office, I have the ability to reserve a space based on permissions. So I've been authorized to come to the building, I've been authorized to go to the first floor, and I've been authorized to book a space in a certain neighborhood. That has been set for me. Then there are rules attached to that space. I can book a space between opening hours, 7 a.m. and 6 p.m. or during weekdays. That's a rule. Or I can book a space for maximum 4 hours in a row. That's another rule. Or a third rule would be I cannot book back-to-back meeting rooms. There's a 30-minute window between two reservations. That's a rule. And then inside rules, you've got the concept of checkpoints. So as I make my reservation, I select the space that I need. When I select the time I need it for, when I click submit, I'm presented with a first checkpoint, and that may be a self-screening questionnaire. Or it may be another checkpoint that says, if you have been vaccinated, upload your vaccine certificate or scan your vaccine certificate. After that, I may be required to watch the health and safety videos on how I should be moving around the office, respecting safety, using the sanitizing station, avoiding touching screens and things like that. So that may be a third checkpoint you're exposed to. And then a lot of companies have updated their etiquette, company workplace etiquette. So as I go through that workflow, maybe I'm presented one last time with the workplace etiquette. Now, those checkpoints can happen all at the same time when you're making a reservation, or they can happen at different time of the day. Maybe you'll get a checkpoint when you make your reservation, and then a checkpoint when you arrive on site and you check in at your resource. Maybe you need to complete another checkpoint. So checkpoints are very powerful. They're totally flexible. They can integrate with third-party systems, so you can integrate with an external e-learning platform for the video. You can integrate with a system like Qualtrics for the employee survey. Doesn't have to be all Appspace. So if you have existing tools, it's a great way to embed those into your Appspace user journey workflows. Brianna?
Yeah, we've seen clients really adapt over the past few months. Obviously, things change frequently with the Delta variant. So we've had people start off with maybe just a self-screening questionnaire, and they've switched to an attestation. And then because they have global deployments, our checkpoints are so flexible and self-service, it's really easy for them to go in there and tailor what the Singapore office might need as opposed to the London office. So people are really a fan of that as well. And then as Thomas mentioned, we have integration. So one of my clients in particular wants their employees to go through a training process. It's a 45-minute video, so it's obviously, it is possible to pop up as a video checkpoint, but not an ideal user experience. So they want to build an integration so that it will verify if they have completed that training before they can go in and make their reservation. So a lot of flexibility in regards to what they can do as checkpoints based on geolocation.
This is awesome. Thank you, Brianna. The following challenge is around hot desking versus hoteling. That's the last challenge we'll cover today. And it's a tricky one. What's hot desk? What's hoteling? It looks the same to me at first. Hot desking is when you allow a user to come to the office and sit at a desk and use that desk for a period of time. That's called hot desking. Hoteling is where you're expecting your user to reserve the workspace ahead of time for a specific period of time. And when the user arrives, they know exactly where they're going to be sitting and for how long they're going to be sitting there. Now, the two are very useful. And many companies are struggling to understand, do I go all in on hot desking, all in on hoteling? Maybe the reality, it's a hybrid deployment. And I'm sure Brianna will give some examples there. But what really matters is companies want to know who's in the office and who's sitting at a desk. And this time before the pandemic, where we didn't really care, it was more about capacity, but it was really not about user identity, has changed. I think now we're seeing the requirement for the user identity, and for obvious safety reasons, you want to know who is sitting here. If there's a COVID outbreak, you can inform the other people that they should be tested. That's one side of it. The other is workplace monitoring. You want to know who are using the spaces, which departments tend to use more certain spaces, or which type of employee profile, so that you can handle scale for those departments. But you could also eventually do cross-billing across different departments based on who's using most the meeting rooms, the huddle spaces, the desks, and so forth. So really that's important. Now, the only way you can have the user identity is if there's some form way to get the employee to confirm they've arrived on site. Because I can reserve a desk using hoteling and never show up. And you think I'm using it, but I'm not using it because I'm not sitting, so it's not useful. So the biggest challenge we're hearing from companies is, how do I make sure that when my employee finally gets to the desk, I know they're there and I know for how long they're there. So we've got ideas and ways we've helped customers. If we go through what we can offer, and it's a non-exhaustive list. I mean, there are so many things we could do. The first is recently you've seen those little desk pucks pop up, and more options out there, whether Cubic or Embrava. You put those pucks on the desk. They have a LED, they have a little screen, or you put them on the wall, and they will indicate whether the space is green, available, orange, booked but not checked in, or red, fully booked, or black, it's out of service, it's blocked by facilities. That's a really powerful way to do that. And we natively integrate with desk pucks to display the scheduling information and allow a user to do that. And one of the example is a QR code. So I arrive to the desk, there's a puck, the puck is showing that it's orange, it has my name saying I've booked it, and I've got to check in. To check in, I take my phone, scan the QR code, authenticate in the app, confirm it is my reservation, and check into my reservation. I now have the identity of the user, and the user is sitting at the desk. On the way out, you just do the other way, you scan the QR code and check out. Now the problem is, what happens if the user doesn't scan the QR code? So we started working with companies who do smart power monitoring and management. And in this case, the power at the desk only turns on when you have a valid reservation and you've checked in. So I book Monday 8 a.m. I arrive Monday 7:55. I scan the QR code. I check in. It activates, sends a message to the power monitoring tool, turns on power for the duration of my reservation. I now have enforced the user to book. And we know it's a war for power. First thing you do when you get in an airplane, is there a USB port to plug and charge your phone or your tablet? So if you don't have power, your time at the desk is limited. So that's a great way to enforce, and that's another approach. The next one is the next generation desk devices that are out there. It's been crazy. The last 18 months, companies like Cisco have released 3 or 4 different devices that you can place at the desk. Now, those devices can run Appspace natively on them. So when they're not used for video conferencing or for calling or for whiteboarding, they can actually be used as a digital sign. And that app there can display the scheduling information. It can tell you whether or not you have reserved the space or if the space is available. You can even interact with a touchscreen because they all have touch displays, and make a reservation or check in directly from the panel, or you can scan the QR code displayed on it and also do your process. We are seeing more and more of those next generation desk devices, and a lot of companies are replacing what used to be a phone and a monitor by one device that combines everything, which is smarter as well. And if as a user you pair with that device, you can pass the identity and you can auto check into your Appspace reservation. So a lot of great opportunity here on the desk devices. Brianna, thoughts on customers using this?
Yeah, we actually have one client who's very excited about the pucks. That's been one of their biggest asks, because they can change the LED lights to their branding. So they have made the available desk versus checked in or unavailable all part of their color scheme. So it's very visually appealing when you walk into the office. And then we have a few other clients that are going the more traditional approach where they have printed out the QR code while they kind of take an assessment of how many people are hot desking versus reserving stations ahead of time. And they're talking about implementing a neighborhood that will be specific for hot desking as opposed to kind of a free-for-all, or the neighborhoods that are dedicated, again, to that specific team that might be a little bit more territorial about where their team gets to sit so they can all be together.
Yeah, it's awesome. I think it's the options you have as a company is what really makes the experience awesome. Depending on your user type, the space you're putting available, you have different options, and you can go and do that progressively. One of the biggest oil and gas company is printing QR codes, and one of the most modern tech companies, super fancy, young Gen Y, is using the desk pucks. And then some of the companies that are more Cisco friendly will deploy the WebEx desk devices. So we're seeing really a lot of different options there that you can pick from. And the list is not exhaustive, as I mentioned. If you have other ideas, other devices, the power supply came in from a bank out of Australia who said, we're deploying smart power supply. Can you trigger the event to turn on the power from Appspace? We thought this is brilliant. So there are more ideas out there, I'm sure, and we'd love to hear those from you so we can keep improving and expanding our offering. All right, well, those were the 5 challenges. To wrap up quickly before we open up for questions, of course, we want to focus on safety. And the most important part is using all the communication tools you have to make your employee feel like you've addressed all the challenges and that they're safe to return to the office. And I think, don't think only mobile or don't think only digital signage, think it as a one whole experience where from a single platform you can create your communication campaign and engage with your users before they're in the office, when they're in the office, and after they leave the office using surveys onto the Appspace app. No sacrifice in the experience. I think that's critical. We've got to motivate people to come back into the office. So we've got to make the workplace even more engaging, even more fun to come back. So more technology, but technology that really improves the experience is going to be critical. Focus on user adoption. Let's make sure that any app you're using today can actually leverage the Appspace capabilities, whether it's Outlook, Google, WebEx, Microsoft Teams, Slack, or whether you want native apps or web app, you have all those options. And I think that's really critical to making sure your users can pick the best way they interact with Appspace. Checkpoints are a critical part of the return to the office and beyond the return to the office. I think we will become more familiar with checkpoints as we interact with the workplace in the future. So stay tuned there, but I think if you try it, as Brianna said, it's extremely simple to use and it's very powerful to help employees back into the office. And then versus hot desking, hoteling, let's stop really fighting around which one you should do. Why don't you operate a hybrid environment and adapt that environment based on the needs? You need hot desk, allow users to sit in and just scan a QR code to make an instant reservation. You need hoteling, allow employees to use their app from home and reserve their desk. You can have that hybrid and monitor it from the analytics portal in the backend to make sure that if you see more demand for hoteling, you increase the number of hoteling desks, and vice versa. If it's hot desking, that seems to be prime. Hopefully those lessons learned that Brianna and I shared with you were helpful, and you can see yourself in there in some of the challenges you're looking forward to engage as you plan for the return to the office. Of course, we're more than welcome to help you along your journey. I think we're going to open up for questions. Tom, if you're going to come back on video, awesome. Any questions?
Yeah, we do have some questions. So I'll start with one that I think is maybe a bit loaded, but obviously with deploying Appspace, we've seen customers that have requested us to integrate with lots of different third-party platforms, right? Some of those might be bespoke, some of those might be things that we've already brought into the platform. But Thomas, I'll kick this to you. What are you most excited about in terms of what we're able to integrate with, whether it's something small like the power supply or something larger like an HRIS system or an IWMS system? What do you think is critical for people to think about and for us to help deliver on when it comes to integrating with third-party platforms to deliver this experience?
Yeah, it's a great question, and it's like you said, it's a heavy loaded question. So the first thing is Appspace provides all the open APIs and are documented and online so that you can integrate with all the third-party tools you may be using. The bigger ones like the IWMS, where you manage your real estate, your resources, and their attributes, that allows you to actually integrate the IWMS into Appspace and have it feed into Appspace what you already have. So you already have your buildings, your floors, your desks, your meeting rooms. You can flow them into Appspace, and then Appspace becomes the tool that you use to administer permissions and rules and for your employees to reserve their workspace. But one of the real first wins we had a little while back was with a big pharma company, and they were using Qualtrics for their self-screening questionnaire. And they had a really nice integration with Qualtrics. And what we did is we just brought Qualtrics inside a checkpoint into Appspace. So instead of having to recreate the whole self-screening questionnaire in Appspace, they already had Qualtrics. It was already authorized by the systems and the operations team. So we just embedded it into it. And I think that's been very, very powerful, this flexibility. Now, I think, like you mentioned, power supplies, pucks, we didn't integrate with Cubic or Embrava 6 months ago. There was no need for it. We were able to turn around and leverage our APIs to integrate with them really quickly. So we're really excited with the opportunities of new business partners that we have, partners that you may be using. Brianna, I'm sure from an IWMS or others, you've had some really cool experiences as well.
Yeah, we have several clients that I've personally been working with that are integrating with the IWMS. That's just going to make their lives easier from their perspective to be able to manage it in that central location when a desk maybe goes offline, for example. We also have one client that's very tech savvy, so they've taken the API and they've built an integration themselves. So they are working that into their ServiceNow integration so that it will trigger a ticket. That way, when people might know, like if a desk needs to be cleaned or if the monitor's not working, they've taken that in their own hands.
That's awesome. Yeah, and I think our network of partners as well can help. We have a lot of really awesome partners who have great knowledge around APIs in multiple systems and can help with the integration. So you really have the option, do it yourself if you're tech savvy, leverage one of the partners, or you can use our enhanced services team to assist you with the integrations.
Sure, and I'll add to that. All of our clients have been leveraging, for the most part, the enhanced services team because they like tapping into our knowledge. They like having some guidance, even if they are tech savvy, making sure they are going about things correctly, so there aren't any issues when they build it themselves, for example, or whenever we're working on integrations. They've been great for that.
That's actually a good segue, Brianna, to another question about overall implementation, right? Okay, this is great. It answers my needs. How do I get from where I am today to actually having this out in the hands of thousands of my employees? And I think you would agree, right? We've seen organizations that have a bit longer of a kind of return to office date, and they have a lot of resources, and they're happy to just kind of get trained on a platform and take it themselves. But I'm sure many organizations that we've seen are hoping to kind of run and get a lot done very soon. With that said, Brianna, I know you've been on a lot of kind of tight turnarounds for our large customers. What do you think makes us successful in getting them up to and running very quickly, in your opinion?
Sure. What I think is great is we have a team that has different levels of experts. We have people who really know the mapping tools, people who know, from the enhanced services team that know different integration platforms to build those scopes and get things done quickly. So we're able to move very quickly whenever we get on that first kickoff call. We have the needs ahead of time, and then we have the different people from various teams to really get off and go running. And we meet frequently as well. So we're trying to make sure we go with everyone's timelines, keep that in mind whenever we're at that kickoff date and gathering all their requirements, whether it's just what colors do you want your desks to look like, what integrations are you looking to build. That way we can get that done.
I think it's important it is a self-service platform. So we like the idea that you can go on appspace.com and create an account and start using the tool, and you don't really need much assistance. The enhanced services team is really to bring it to the next level, scale faster, and integrate with systems that are existing in your environment. But I remember I was on holiday in August and I logged into the system to see how we were doing from onboarding users. And there was a media company that, Tom, you signed in July that had 5,000 users logging less than 30 days later, just to reserve a workspace and start interacting. And I thought, wow, if you are able to onboard 5,000 users in less than 30 days, it really shows the product and the services team is mature enough to that. Today, the biggest reference we have is what, 130,000 reservable workstations or rooms, resources reserved by over 180,000 users. So the scale and the speed at which we can deploy is really part of the success of this product.
Excellent. Yeah, I mean, I agree, right? That example and many others of being able to get deployed so quickly. It's great that we've got those resources to help with that, but at the end of the day, it's really the product, I think, that helps facilitate that. Kind of switching gears back to outside of Appspace, Thomas, you work with a lot of some of the world's biggest tech companies as a partner, right? So you think about Cisco and Crestron and Microsoft and others. What, in your opinion, kind of putting on binoculars and looking into the future, from a hardware perspective, what do you think the trend is amongst those providers in terms of technology that you see coming out there, and how do you think Appspace is going to help? I'm thinking specifically on the desktop, but if you think about any other areas like huddle spaces, I think people are interested to know, what are you seeing out there in terms of what might be coming to market in 2022 and how that might help Appspace customers?
Yeah, there's certainly a lot in their roadmap that they're not telling me. What you can see is there are definitely more and more desk devices. And if you take Cisco, they started with the Desk Pro. It was a pretty big device at a pretty premium price. And then they started bringing the WebEx Desk, and they announced the Desk Hub, and there are other desk devices coming down the road. That's giving a lot of options for customers. And I think a lot of the other hardware manufacturers out there are following the same trend. So we're going to have tons of devices to play with. What's really nice is because we have native and web apps, we can run on those really simply. So on the WebEx devices, we run our progressive web app. On the Crestron device, we run our Android app, and we really are able to adapt. So we're able to move super fast. So it takes more time to design and build a hardware device than it takes to simply load our Appspace app. I think where it's really going to become transformational is when this experience that you have at home, using Netflix or Apple TV or Amazon Prime, accessing your content on your phone, your tablet, or your smart TV, and personalizing that experience has changed the home experience. I don't have linear TV at home anymore. I don't even know what this is, and my kids have never seen it. I think this is happening in the workplace. I think companies want to enable those new devices to allow the user to interact with the content and select which content is relevant to them. So if I'm going into a huddle space and there is a big WebEx board device, I can have multiple channels assigned to it. I can select which content I want to play back, whether it's a town hall recording, product messaging, sales dashboard. I can tune that based on the audience. And I think what I was mentioning earlier, this idea of next generation experiences, can I reserve those devices? And not only by that reserving the space, but also reserve the airtime on the screen. They're awesome glass. They're beautiful pieces of glass. So if I turn it, I reserve it, and I come in the office and the content is already running on those screens, and it's welcoming me and it's giving me the information that's relevant, I think that's extremely powerful. So we're really working closely with those hardware manufacturers. But again, a vendor like SmartCell in Australia with smart power supplies, that's completely new, just came around, and we thought, whoa, this is brilliant, let's just integrate. So we're always listening for new ideas.
That's excellent. Yeah, I think that's kind of the exciting thing, right? I think that we're so agile and we have such a focus on making sure that we're adding value to technology partners that our customers are investing in, that it's exciting to see how that sometimes can shift how we decide to kind of change our platform or our approach or maybe add new partnerships. So that's always been fun to watch. I guess looking at the clock, I do have one more too that I want to throw out there, Thomas or Brianna. I think the question for you, I think, will be around with deploying Appspace, we obviously have our employee app, web app, Android and Apple iOS app. What are you excited about with what you see from Slack and WebEx Teams and Microsoft Teams and the pervasiveness of those enterprise messaging apps and how we play in with them? You know, what do you think is the strength there for us, and what do you think the future will be in terms of how typical companies deploy Appspace in 2022?
Well, maybe I'll start, and Brianna, you can talk about customers who are already using it. We've had for a while now the ability to publish into those apps. So you can create content in Appspace, organize it, and then schedule that content to pop up into a Slack channel, a Microsoft Teams channel, a WebEx space, to a single user, a group of users. You really have a powerful publishing tool. And we all live and breathe in those apps, so it makes sense to receive your key messages there. The next thing we did is when we released Space Reservation, we implemented notifications. So when you make a booking, you receive a notification in WebEx, you receive a notification in Slack or Microsoft, and it reminds you, hey, you've successfully made your reservation, or you have to complete a checkpoint, or it's time for you to check in. And that makes it very, very efficient to make sure your employees don't miss on an important space reservation event. Next, towards the end of this year, is our embedded app approach. Both Microsoft and WebEx give the ability to have an embedded version of our app directly into those apps. So imagine on the sidebar of WebEx or Teams having the little Appspace icon, and when you select it, it opens the Appspace app in the full real estate of your Teams client or WebEx client, and you can do everything. Read the latest company news, access your Teams channels, your video feeds, but also, and most importantly, reserve your workspace, comply to your checkpoints. I think that's really exciting, and I think when you see the success of those apps out there, that's definitely where we want to be. It's another great opportunity to access the Appspace app. Brianna, I think you see a lot of demand around that as well, right?
Yeah, and I think what people really like is, again, having consistent messaging. The same information that's going on their digital screens can be placed within a WebEx app, and then they can also tailor the content based on location or a team, whether it's the marketing team might have different information that they're getting than the accounting team. The people in, you know, Europe are having different content than the global feed, for example. So there's a lot of ways to really segment that information or globalize it and keep it all consistent across the platform.
Yeah, and I think just to add and close maybe on that, we're releasing in Q4 our broadcast feature. So today we already have an alert feature that allows you to override the experience on digital signs, room scheduling panel, WebEx devices, and so forth when there's an emergency on campus. In the broadcast module, we'll have the ability to also publish alerts and push alerts to WebEx spaces, Microsoft Teams channels, Slack channels into the Appspace app. So on all the personal devices and in all the different apps to make sure that if there is an urgency, people are aware as quickly as possible. And I think that's really aligned to the safety and security piece, is you don't want to waste any time when there's something happening on campus or off campus. You want to make sure you reach out to the right users really quickly. So that's going to be an exciting new feature coming out towards the end of this year.
Excellent. Well, with that, I think we'll wrap, but not before I answer a question that I'm going to lob up as well about how do we find out more if you're interested in testing this out and trying this for your organization. And so the short answer is go to appspace.com. We have two buttons right at the top of the website. You can contact sales directly. And you can also create your own account and start testing this out today. So you'll have all the features that we just talked about at your fingertips. So I would definitely recommend that you go to appspace.com, click contact sales. You can also reach out to us on LinkedIn. You can follow our blog and get more insightful updates about lessons that we've learned. So thank you very much for attending. Again, we'll email you the full recording, but please don't hesitate to reach out to us. We're excited about helping you and your organization get back to work in a post-COVID world. So thanks again, and we'll talk to you soon.
Thank you. Thanks, everyone. Bye.